Hello everyone, this is Many Ninjas here. Now this is a bit more of a unique video in terms of my usual video format, as I'm actually going to be starting off here covering the real Super Saiyan Trunks Boy from the Future, aka Trunks 2.0 figure, as we've already done a video covering my general opinion and unboxing, and I say the term very loosely, of its equivalent bootleg. So, what we're going to do is a little bit of a quick unboxing here, as you can see from the actual clamshell that this figure came with, as opposed to the box that I got for the bootleg. Quick check in terms of its height, as well as articulation check, and then start talking about how this one kind of compares with the bootleg version. And I will have to tell you right now, it's a very big mismatch, I would say. Now, in terms of the general height of this one, it's going to be just a smidge over 6 inches tall, which using all the different 3.0 articulation bits kind of makes it as a unique scale, as it's slightly bigger than scale than most of the other figures prior to this point. And also has a lot of different articulation marks in there, namely the hips and a little bit on the shoulders and such, which generally should give this figure quite a bit of range, and honestly does. And also, generally another little note on there is I noticed there are thicker joints in certain other spots, like the elbows definitely tend to be wider on 3.0 releases, as well as the hips themselves having their new unique articulation type, and usually I would say also the knees tend to have a little more of a generously sized joint. Now, in terms of Trunks, unfortunately his joints are kind of a big issue on this figure overall. There's actually quite a widespread issue in terms of his joint articulation in general here. Namely, his bicep joints are incredibly loose on many releases, if not falling outright off. And in terms of his hips, they tend to be quite loose if you have them at certain angles, if they're not completely spread out like this, which, speaking of which, he has a very good spread, I would say. But if they're only slightly moved, his hips are actually quite loose, I find. Well, on the rest of his joints, like his elbows, his knees, his ankles to most extent are pretty good, although mine, one of the ankles is a bit iffy, as well as one of the toe joints I'll say in a second. But in terms of his shoulders and his hips particularly, for some reason it just seems to be a running production issue, which causes them to be either quite loose or outright falling off, which is very unfortunate considering that this is not like a budget release. It's not a premium Bandai release, it's a general one, but it should have honestly come out nicer than what it actually got. Now, in terms of presentation, as you can see from the bootleg here, it's no contest. Elbow joints are much nicer. The legs are, I forgot to mention this in the original video, the legs on the bootleg are just plain completely wrong. Now, a lot of commenters kind of came up and mentioned off the hand that they actually come from the movie Ultimate Gohan figure on this case, which might explain a bit of why the articulation range on the bootleg is actually slightly better than it is on the real Trunks, believe it or not. However, in terms of the quality of how well the joints hold, their tightness, I would say honestly they're both equally bad. At least based on my own experience here, I'm sorry. The S range is only good if it can hold the position properly, which the bootleg doesn't do a particularly good job on. And it also would explain why on the bootleg the hips seem slightly that much wider than it is on the real one. Now, in terms of the various accessory bits, including a quick review of the various heads and faces here, as you can kind of see, the heads on the bootleg are just slightly smaller than they're supposed to be, as well as just generally a lot less sharp in terms of their detailing, which, considering their recasted bits, it's not exactly a huge surprise here. What will catch me offhand here as we take a look and remove the face and the bangs bit is that for the real version head, aside from having a different neck piece for the actual neck connection there, it's a small little peg that they insert there, the base hair color is actually the same Super Saiyan yellow, and they just painted over that, so that one actually did catch me off guard. Now, worth mentioning while we're here, technically while you could try to interchange the bangs a bit, the real bangs will not exactly fit on the bootleg particularly well because of the slight change in the head size. It's not exactly a perfect fit, although the other one is feasible, but it's still not great. However, the faceplates are still close enough that you technically could interchange them. So if you wanted to modify the bootleg faces in order to work on the real one, like if you lost some of the real ones for some reason, or wanted to convert some of the Super Saiyan faces into regular Trunks non-transformed ones, technically that is a thing you could do. Also for the faces, let's take a look at the Super Saiyan ones. I can see the faces are slightly smaller vertically, I would say, and there's definitely a lack of quality in terms of its casting, but give or take, they are close enough in size that they will work. And now you'll want to replace the decals though, because the bootleg decals are definitely a drop off in quality, as well as the paint detail around the mouth, as you can see from the missing teeth on the bottom row of Trunks on this particular one. What I will also say is, in terms of the hands, technically they are interchangeable enough, although you might need to fix the openings on the bootleg hands, but technically they will work. Now, in terms of the hair bits, once again, this is a no contest. On top of just general better shading, there's a lot of seam lines and everything on the bootleg heads on both the Super Saiyan as well as the non-transform heads, so they're not exactly a great fit. Now, for the swords, this is kind of the biggest point of difference in terms of the accessories. Namely, Bootleg Trunks has the wrong sword. Yeah, that's absolutely not the same blade at all, which kind of explains why on the bootleg one, this particular sword kind of slips out of the scabbard all the time, and it also doesn't have the pommel able to come off, because it's the wrong blade. Might have come from a different Trunks figure. I don't think the 1.0, but rather the Time Traveler Trunks. If someone knows the exact answer, bring that up in the comments, please. Oh, another thing I should mention in terms of the sword there is the belt on the real one is much more flexible. This is technically a very good thing because, while it is still a bit of a trouble to get on the actual figure itself, which we'll demonstrate in a second once I do a quick video cut, I will at least say that in terms of making sure that it doesn't tear in the pegs, which is absolutely a problem I had with previous Trunk figure, namely the Super Saiyan, I should say the Dragon Ball Super version of Trunks, where it actually tore off on my real deal one. This one, at least, the worst that will happen is it seems to just fall out more often than not. And as we take one last look at what I remind you is the real figure straight out of the box, it's only worth lamenting at this point that even the real deal on Trunks just turned out to be, despite the really great sculpt and presentation, it's just a really haphazard figure at the best of times. And the bootleg is just that much worse. So, I'd honestly say, if you haven't rushed out to pick up the 2.0 Trunks here, wait for it to go on sale, if anything, if you can help it on that one. Unless you really have a fear of missing out, and just ignore the bootleg entirely. It's just terrible. There is no redeeming things on the bootleg whatsoever, I'm sorry to say. And for now, I will say, that's actually all I have to say on this particular matter. We'll catch you guys next time with something a little fresher, I hope. For now, take care.